Hi guys, welcome to Origin. So, in this video I'm going to be responding to Jim, that's noelplum99's video, Humans and Synths. In the video, he talks about the Channel 4 show Humans, which, I would second him, I gladly recommend watching it. But he asked one question, which I want to have a crack at, providing an answer to, and that was, if robots do in fact steal all the jobs, like every job that humans are capable of, how does the economy function? How do we pay for our resources? Well, the first thing I want to do before I give my solution is to mention one that's already out there. I saw this documentary fairly recently. It's by a YouTube user called Maveric Media. As far as I can tell, he made it himself, so there's some production quality issues, but don't let that discourage you. It goes into massive amounts of detail about about exactly which jobs will be affected by automation and when and how. And I highly recommend watching it. It's called Will Work for Free. There was also a TED talk by a guy called, so I'm looking at the screen behind me here, Frederico Pistono. He did a talk called Robots Will Steal Your Job, but That's Okay. Basically, both Maverick Media and Frederico came to the same conclusion, and that was that the Venus Project is a solution. Now, I've talked about the Venus Project before. I've talked quite favourably about it before. My position's a bit more complicated on it now, in light of an idea that I've come to an idea that kind of overshadows it in terms of, its ability to affect society, but I'll come to that. I don't think the world will turn out the way the Venus Project imagines. I think it will actually be more ambitious, or more amazing than what they demonstrate in their videos. But it is one way to go. I just want to give you my version of how I think things will turn out. So, let's start. It comes in three forms. I think there's three different ways that this could happen. Some of them are fairly similar, but I'll get to that. The first form is via, and this is the big idea I was talking about earlier, the singularity. Now, Jim, you've mentioned that in one of your videos. I don't know whether it was the Humans and Synths ones or the Aliens and AI one, but you briefly touched on it. The concept goes like this. We're all familiar with Moore's Law. That's the doubling of transistors on a chip. It's happening currently at a rate of 2 years. I've seen certain articles that suggest it might be pushed back to 2.5 years because they're in a particularly difficult situation. We're coming to the end of Moore's Law now that, you'll have seen in the news they designed a 7nm chip at Intel. It can really only go down to about 1 or 2 nanometers, then you're talking about individual atoms, so it's running out of steam. It's predicted to come to an end sometime early next decade. But Ray Kurzweil, he has a solution to that. Ray Kurzweil is the guy most commonly associated with the singularity today. He does the most to champion the idea. I still have to explain what it is, so let me just get that out of the way. As computing power advances, basically you get to a point where it's equivalent to the human brain. Give maybe another 10-15 years later, and as many billions, trillions of times faster than even that. And then when you have AI that works on that kind of substrate, then you're talking about something which irreversibly and in the most profound way imaginable transforms society. It's completely impossible to imagine because, the future at that point will be designed by beings many trillions of times more intelligent than us. We have no way of predicting what will happen 1 second after the singularity, let alone a year. And that's the general idea. It can't really be overstated. Ray Kurzweil, the guy I talked about, predicts that this will happen in 2045. So 30 years from now, let that sink in. You're probably thinking, that's utterly ridiculous. The guy's a nut job. How can he possibly think something like that? According to him, this follows directly on from the trend that he's observed in, the growth of computing power already. He's literally just extrapolating that same trend at its current pace over the next 30 years, and we get to a point in 2045 where a computer that costs $1,000 is equivalent to the processing power of every human brain on the planet, which at the time is projected to be 9 or 10 billion people. So he outlines in his 2005 book, The Singularity is Near. I'll be dropping all of my citations in the comment section below, well, the description. He outlines that we will have essentially no choice but to merge with AI. So, our brains will be upgraded, we'll become part machine ourselves, all the advantages that machines have, we'll have them. Obviously we'll still keep our emotions, but we will upgrade our own thoughts, and we'll have to do it in order to keep up with all the information that is being generated at that point. And at the same time we design out our need for certain resources like food or water, we would just essentially need energy. When you have a society like that, capitalism seems a bit redundant, it has to be said. So that's Form 1. Form 2, the only real difference here is that in all cases the singularity is still expected to happen, it's just the timing that's in question. Whether or not I personally think it'll happen by 2045, I have reason to doubt that, but I'll come to that in another video. Form 2 assumes, a point where we reach full automation before the singularity, which is, we solve the problem via an abundance of energy and resources. Now, I recently read a book by Peter Diamandis, who has worked closely with Ray Kurzweil. He co-founded the Singularity University with him. This book was called Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think. And one of the things he outlines is the growth of solar power. Now, I like to follow technology, I've been following this myself. We currently hit 200 quite recently hit 200 gigawatts of worldwide production. Now, if we extrapolate that trend, there's no guarantee it will continue at that pace, but if we do, let me just show you this graph that I made. This is going to be quite dodgy, so bear with me. So you see you've got this exponential curve. The blue dots here are years that we have information for. We're currently about here. This is a prediction for the projection for the end of 2015, but we're currently in the middle here, 200 gigawatts. The total global energy production is 16 terawatts, or 16,000 gigawatts. That's predicted to happen in 2030. We get to 10 times that in 2038. So, given that information, that will again profoundly affect our entire society. Economic growth will go through the roof. It will affect the amount of food we're able to produce, the amount we're able to desalinate, salt water, so fresh water no longer becomes a problem. Basically drives the cost of everything down to zero, and then, again, there's no reason to have a capitalist system where people pay for resources that are scarce because they're not scarce anymore. Let me just go back to my of course I have assumed that trend in solar power continues at that pace. It might not necessarily happen. It might, it probably will slow down, but who knows. The third form this takes is essentially very similar to the second, but we grow our food through the use of essentially 3D printers, but ones that work with cells and proteins instead of, resins and stuff that we currently use. In May 2013, and I'll link a video by the channel Forward Thinking that talks about this. In May 2013, we produced a burger in the lab that cost us $325,000 to make. In June 2015, we can produce that same burger for $11. So essentially you could serve it at a restaurant and it becomes economically viable. Now we can't mass produce them yet, but if we've got the price down that far, stands to reason it could go further. It also stands to reason, if we can do this with meat, surely we can do this with plants and fruit. It also takes meat out of the problem area with vegetarians and vegans of, we're obviously no longer killing animals or causing them to suffer, so there's that. And, once again, if everyone has a 3D printer in their homes that can print food, why would they pay for it? So there we go. Thanks for making the video, Jim. This is an area that I've become quite fascinated by recently. I've liked watching, the progression of technology. So it will actually probably become a staple of my channel in the future. I'll probably make quite a lot of videos about this, and especially the idea of the singularity, because I just find that so fascinating. But let me know what you guys think. I guess I'd be interested to hear what you think of the idea of the singularity, because it is so, surreal and mind-blowing and, too good to be true maybe, but, well, you kind of don't know. It's yet to happen, but, there's a lot to think about there. So let me know what you think about all of this stuff. Jim, as I said, thank you for the video. You're one of my favourite YouTubers. Please keep making more videos. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.